We're going to start off with a lesson called Economics for English Majors. You know who you are. There are no answers. There are only trade-offs. The first lesson of economics is scarcity. There is never enough of anything to satisfy all those who want it. The first lesson of politics is to disregard the first lesson of economics. I'm going to focus on the diversion of money from the road fund this year because, boy, I'll tell you what, that's a lucrative and very fertile ground for taking money from one place and putting it into another. We have $200 million going to fund mass transit operating expenses within the RTA, and it comes at a time when the authority is being faced with a fiscal cliff next year of nearly $800 million brought about through breathtaking mismanagement of the money given to it during COVID. The least that could have been done, the least, was to tie it to reform. The final agreement spelled out that the money being transferred to the transit funds, this is both Chicago area and downstate, from the road fund are not intended or planned for road projects. The language also specifies that the road fund and another $50 million transfer from the leaking underground storage tank, LUST, fund to public transportation operating expenses are a one-time only events. If this is really only a one-time transfer, we're already talking in the next fiscal year operation starting off in a $200 million hole. There's an old saying
will yield his time.
That when you find yourself in a hole, the first thing to do is stop digging. How much do you want to bet that next year's budget is going to include money to keep us from going over that fiscal cliff? EV credits, electric vehicles. While the majority party thumps its chest on how to help ordinary people, this budget creates a program paid from the motor fuel tax fund to allow rich people to buy electric vehicles. The base price of a Tesla is about $75,000. Given that the average income of the people in McHenry County, where I come from, in 2022 was $45,617, I don't know how many of them would think of plopping down $75,000 for a car on the promise of a $4,000 tax credit. The money that's coming, this money is coming right out of the working people of Illinois' pockets. How many years does it take for a normal driver to pay $4,000 in motor fuel taxes that you're giving to a wealthy Tesla buyer all at once? When I voted for the increase in the motor fuel tax in 2019, I did it with the expectation that all the money would go into a lockbox and be used specifically for road and bridge purposes, a lockbox that was set up in the state constitution. I now find that the city of Woodstock is being saddled with an additional $10 million to relocate water and sewer lines as part of the expansion of Route 47 through town. While the original bid for relocation was $6 million, which the city has set aside for that purpose, inflation alone has driven that cost up to $16 million, and all IDOT will do is offer us a $10 million loan to cover the cost.
Representative Schweich is yielding his time.
The same problem exists in the city of Marengo on a project that's been underway since 2020, and it is no doubt affecting other communities statewide, but it does have a $12 million to pay for charging stations for cars that no one wants to buy. So what we have is money that we've been paying in for 5 years for the purposes of improving our road and infrastructure being loaned to us, our own money being loaned to us. So the state has enough money to subsidize Elon Musk by giving credits to buy cars that nobody wants and $400 million in grants to economically disadvantaged communities without defining what those communities are. IDOT could take that $400 million and give it to road projects right now, but instead they're going to fund grants. And you know what that means? That means grant applications. That means grant reviews. That means that none of that money is going to be spent until God knows when. This is just another example of government taking our money and then treating it as its own. The Democrat caucuses will receive $500 million more to spend on member capital initiatives. If they had any conscience or any sense of ethics, they would report this money as a campaign contribution and put it on an A1 with the State Board of Elections. If we're sitting on so much money, we're sitting on $5 billion in the road fund. If we're sitting on so much money that IDOT can't spend it all, why not increase the allocation to local governments to speed up their projects, or, God forbid, send some of it back to the taxpayers? In short, we have an administration that's budgeting its way around the Constitution so it can treat the road fund as its private ATM.